in some cases, we may see those signals, but think, yeah, but I don't want to come across as pushy,
Mm.
or I don't want to come across the wrong way. I don't want to turn them off. What is an example of your approach when you see somebody that has viewed your profile and you're just reaching out in a friendly way?
Yeah.
What is an example of what you say in that situation?
I mean, I have templates, so I could tell you exactly word for word what I say because I'm doing
Yeah,
it all the time. But
awesome.
ultimately, what it boils down to is first and foremost, I thank them,
Yeah.
right? I say thank you because to me, regardless if you stop by my profile, you hit the follow button, you commented, you liked, whatever, there's different emojis in there. You took time out of your day to engage with me. So
Yeah.
therefore, why shouldn't I thank you for giving me your most valuable asset? You gave me a piece of your time, right? A piece of your attention. So I always start every message to say, thanks so much for supporting my posts, for coming to my profile, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
I almost always end it the same way. Hey, out of curiosity, is there anything I could do to be of help? More often than
Mm.
not, people are going to say, no, just checked out your profile. No, loved your content. But you do have people that respond and say, yeah, actually, the reason why I checked you out because of X, Y, and Z, I'm dealing with this, right? They present what it is that drove them to come check me out. And the conversation started from there.
This is Sean Lyden, and welcome to another episode of the Systematic Selling Podcast, where we share strategies, trends, and best practices to help you scale your sales and build a business you love. Today, Keely Flood joins us on the pod. Keely is a 10-year corporate sales veteran, and during that time, he's earned multiple President's Club awards in both the SaaS and recruiting spaces. And about a year ago, Keely started his own company, The Honest Salesperson, providing sales coaching services to staffing and recruiting firms. Keely opens up about his unorthodox career path, from college football coach to corporate sales to entrepreneurship, and all the sales lessons he learned along the way. Throughout the episode, we delve into various aspects of sales, leadership, and the importance of taking a systematic approach to achieving business growth. So get ready to take notes on episode 14 of the Systematic Selling Podcast. Keely, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And happy Friday.
Awesome. Happy Friday to you. And so glad you've been able to come on board and join us. What I wanted to start off with, you're from the Chicago area, and I'm curious, is that where you grew up?
I did. Yeah. I grew up in the western suburbs, town called Lombard. Was
Yeah.
there for first 18 years of my life. Went off to college, got as far away as 5 hours from my hometown, and then ultimately came back here because happy wife, happy life. And so we wanted to get back to her family's around here. A
Yeah.
lot of my family's still around here as well. So we wanted to get back to Chicago after living in Minnesota for a couple of years.
Gotcha. What brought you to Minnesota?
I was a college football coach. I coached at a Division II school there called Winona State,
Uh-huh.
and I was a graduate assistant. And with that, really a 2-year appointmentship. And so when
Yeah.
it got to the end of really the start of January 2015, I started looking for jobs, and I was applying to be a GA in like Texas, New Jersey,
Uh-huh.
California. And at the time, my wife and I had been married for 6 months, and I think I saw her for about 6 hours in the first 6 months of marriage. I'm like, look, maybe we don't want to do this for a lifetime. We wanted to start a family, and so decided to look for corporate jobs, specifically in the Chicago area, so we get back home.
Gotcha. Yeah, you just anticipated my next question about why you left coaching. That makes
Yep.
complete sense. Now, did you meet your wife in college, and where did you go to college again?
Yeah, I did meet her in college. I went to Division III schools, Illinois Wesleyan here in
Yeah.
Illinois, obviously with the name. And I actually played college football there. And that's what kind of sparked me to want to get into coaching college football, which I did for 5 years after I graduated.
Yeah. And you were an offensive lineman?
I was, yep, the unsung heroes of the offense. I played guard and I played center.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to be on some really, really successful teams, which was a ton of fun because who doesn't love winning? And on the
Yeah.
flip side, when I first got there, we were actually my freshman year, we were terrible. We were 3-7. And I think that had been the third year in a row they had been sub 500.
Yeah.
And we were able to, we and obviously everyone else, right? But our class in particular was able to kind of turn things around for the program, which was a lot of fun to look back upon now.
Now, when you left coaching, so it was about 5 years after you graduated undergrad, and you went into looking for corporate jobs, did you go immediately into sales, or what direction did you take from there?
Yeah, it was. I looked immediately for sales jobs. As far as the
Hmm.
industry at the time,
Yeah.
I didn't care what it was. Like, I had some buddies who had graduated, they'd gotten to, like, say, med device sales or SaaS, right? The fun, exciting world that everyone wants to get into. And so I really just started applying to any sales position because at that point, 5 years removed from college, my experience was a college football coach. My degree was in religion. And so I
Right.
thought, what requires no prerequisites, basically? Sales. I'm like, great. So I started applying there. And one of the
Yeah.
jobs was like copy sales. There was a bunch of other stuff. And really, I stumbled across the recruiting space because someone reached out to me to try to place me at a job. And I remember talking to her and I was confused. I was like, I don't understand what you do, right? Like, I'm not working for your company. She's like, no, no, you'll work for my client over here. I'm like, well, why
Yeah.
are you calling me and not them? She's like, oh, I'm a recruitment agency. My job is to find people jobs. And I remember being
Yeah.
like, wait, you get paid for that? And she's like, yeah, I get paid. Like, I get commission, blah, blah. Like, kind of sounds kind of cool, actually. And thinking about my experience at the time, like, well, I recruited high school athletes to come play college football, and we were only at Division 3. We were
There
not
you
getting
go.
any scholarships, or
Yeah.
Division 2, which is a small amount of scholarships, right? So we're not giving people full rides. It's a different type of recruiting experience. And so I thought, hey, that's a transferable skill. And I'm just going to cling on to that for dear life, and applied nothing to recruiting firms. And that's really what I did from that point onward. Once I realized this industry even existed, which at the time I didn't know, come to find out it's at this point a $200 billion industry in the US alone.
Yeah. Now, when you played football, so you were a offensive lineman, and you think, okay, in terms of positions that people would think with conventional wisdom would translate into sales, a lot of times people look at those who are in the limelight, the quarterback, the wide receivers, the defensive backs, the guys that are, racking up the stats because, sales is a stats game as well. So conventional wisdom is, yeah, it's those folks that would really crush in sales. And as an offensive lineman, your things work because of you. They're
Mm-hmm.
able to achieve their numbers because of you, but you're not necessarily known as the one for producing the results. So, how did you make that transition in your mind to go, yeah, I was an offensive lineman. I don't necessarily like to have the limelight on me, but I think I could succeed at sales and be really good at it. In fact, build a business around it. What led you to think that?
Well, a couple of things you mentioned, like the quarterback, right? Ironically, what I referenced saying I had some friends in sales and one in the med device space. That was our quarterback. His name
Yeah.
is Craig Ladd, who's still in
Yeah.
it. He's a VP now at this point, very successful in his
Uh-huh.
role. And he was one of the first people I reached out to when I thought, hey, I want to get in this whole sales thing. I think
Yeah.
one of the reasons I thought I could be successful, specifically in the recruiting space, is while yes, I'm the one who's in front of the clients, it very much is a teamwork type of arrangement because
Hmm.
I was in the 180 model, meaning when I started, I only recruited. And then when I transitioned into sales, client facing, I only sold. So that means I only did half the job. The other half had to be filled by somebody else, right? So when I brought
Right.
back roles, my recruiters were responsible for filling the roles. And then, oh, by the way, if you want to throw in other pieces of the teamwork, the candidates had to work together, the clients had to work together. So it was really a true team concept. If we all wanted to achieve a goal, which boiled down in its most simplistic form, it is to fill an open position, it's going to take the input of a variety of different parties to get to that goal. And I felt
Yeah.
like, hey, as an offensive lineman, right, I was kind of used to that, right? We worked together as a unit, all five of us up front to make something happen. And we had to work in unison and being, if we're getting real technical, being the center, I was responsible for calling everything. I had to basically direct where we were going with protection, what we're making from O-line adjustments up front based on the fronts we're giving. So like, I guess I was kind of used to barking orders in a sense,
Right.
but with the goal of if we do this together, we can achieve more than obviously you can do as a single individual.
Yeah. Have you found that to be a competitive advantage for you? I got to imagine it is, in the sense that, I've seen a lot of sales teams, been around sales teams. You got guys that are, fantastic at the actual art of sales, but are terrible at teamwork.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they may get numbers quickly, but then they rub people the wrong way and end up getting forced out and so forth. I gotta imagine that what you found there, and with that experience of coordinating the different pieces to be part of delivering a certain level of client experience, was actually an advantage for you.
Yeah. I think not having the world's biggest ego can certainly help
Yeah.
because a big ego can take the air out of the room.
Yeah.
And I've been and continue to be very comfortable not having the limelight on me.
Yeah.
I think going back to like one of my favorite quotes from a coach growing up, I believe it was Bo Schemblecker that said it. It was, if we win, the players did it. If we lose, it was my fault. Right. And I think
Yeah.
that's how every coach and really every leader should look at it as well. Is if a team performs to the levels that they're expected or beyond, it's because of what the team did. It's what the players did. If they fall short, it's a reflection upon the coaching and the leadership. In that case, I should be the one shouldering the blame. And that's kind of how I've approached, I mean, basically all walks of life now, but that's
Yeah.
how I look at it is, hey, we're in this together. And if we win, it's because of the efforts you put in. And I played a small part behind the scenes, and that's plenty fine for me. I don't need the limelight at all
Yeah.
because that's not what drives me.
Earlier you mentioned that you're a religion major, got your undergrad degree in religion. I can relate to it. I was a seminary student, not a seminary grad, but a seminary student. And I'm curious, what led you to become a religion major? What were you thinking you would do with that? Were you wanting to apply that to be you know, a career football coach, or did you have other sights in mind?
It certainly wasn't to become a priest. I can tell you that first and foremost,
Yeah.
because most people ask that, even my own siblings. They said, hey, did you want to become a priest? It's like, no, I did not. I
Yeah.
did have my sights set on becoming a high school football coach because
Mm.
growing up, I went to a Catholic high school, much different requirements to be a teacher in that space versus, say, public school. At this point in my career in college, I hadn't really thought of the teaching path because you had to do certain courses to get there. I just thought, hey, I liked this class I took, which was Philosophers Read the Bible. It was extremely interesting to me. I thought, why not just explore this option? And I threw a history minor on there as well as like a backup in case I could go teach history in high school.
Yeah.
But it was actually my college football coach, Norm, who said, hey, maybe we should give this college football thing a try. Maybe we should go into try to coaching that. And that kind of steered me away from the high school route. And within the college ranks, degree is, again, not, there are no requirements in terms of you need to be X degree in order to be a college football coach.
Yeah.
And that just steered me along that path as opposed to going the high school route.
I was a English lit major and a philosophy minor, and most people think that's a useless degree. How does it help you in business? How does it help you in sales? And I'd argue that it taught me a lot in terms of critical thinking, being able to read between the lines, analyzing what people say. So that was an area where I still draw from that discipline, that expertise I developed. I'm curious for you, the discipline that you learned as you were getting your religion degree, how has that helped shape you for success in sales and now as a founder?
Yeah. A big thing I think that it taught me was to understand that my viewpoint isn't necessarily the one and only true viewpoint.
What?
What that means, yeah, go ahead. What it means is basically, look, you have to open your mind up to how other people are interpreting. I mean, going back to the philosophy of the Bible, right? How
Yeah.
an individual is interpreting even a particular sentence could be different. And so to go into a conversation, right, if we're applying it strictly to sales, to go in thinking like this is the only option, this is the only course, it's just a closed mindset. It doesn't allow you to be open to new ideas. It doesn't allow you to even hear what your prospect's saying because you're so tunnel visioned on what you think is the right path that you
Mhm.
miss all the signs where they are directing you to go a different path. And I think one of the more powerful things you can say in sales is, hey, I'm not the right fit for you, right? But I
Yeah.
think there's someone else who can help you. You're never going to get to that line though if you think yours is the one and only right solution, and you're not going to get there if you don't actually listen to what they're saying because you're going to speak over them. You're going to give them the wrong solution. They're going to leave that meeting thinking, this guy even listened to me? He didn't hear anything I said. He just wanted to tell me what he told me what he wanted to say, not what I wanted to actually speak about, which is not the way you should go about selling and building trust with your prospects and clients.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but conventional wisdom in sales is the customer's expecting you to have a prescription for them and an opinion
Mhm.
about their situation. And in the end, yes. But what I'm hearing you say is, okay, starting out, you got to have a little bit of empathy, and a little bit of humility, and to seek first to understand what the situation is because your prescription might actually change from what you presuppose. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
100%, right? You need to go into every conversation. You said my favorite line, right? You got to seek to understand
Hmm.
because that's the first place you should be. And then the next thing is, can I help them, right? Now that I understand what's actually going on, I understand the problems, the challenges you're going through, can I even help? If the answer
Hmm.
is no, fine. That's not the end of the world, right? I'm not the right fit for everybody, just like every other competitor is not the right for a company. But can I direct them to the right fit? Because that is a way you can add value beyond just selling them something. The byproduct of doing this and having this mindset is if you do understand their problems and you can in fact help them, it will lead to a sale because
Yeah.
it's the right fit. But again, if you're going in there with a very closed mindset of I'm the solution, I just want to try to get it through the door, it's not going to work out. It may feel great in the moment. It might be they signed the dotted line, awesome, and then a few months later they have a terrible experience. Not only did you ruin that relationship, probably for the rest of your career, those people, regardless of what industry you're in, it's always smaller than it feels like. And there's people that talk to other people, and before you know it, your reputation has gotten ahead of you before you can even catch up to it.
And if I were thinking of other applications to what you're talking about here, I'm thinking of, say, how you would apply it to dealing with rejection. So, the way we tend to be wired is we are reactionary. So, earlier I said seek first to understand. That, of course, comes from Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that same book, he talks about the difference between us as humans and the animal kingdom is that, you know, between stimulus and response, there's that opportunity to pause and to reflect, to see what the other person means, what that stimulus means. And so a lot of times the way we are naturally wired is if we encounter a no, we encounter rejection or what we perceive as a rejection, we we immediately go into response mode, and that response mode thinks of the worst intention that that person could have, right?
Sure.
And so when you are applying this idea of seeking first to understand, having that empathy and humility, it does allow you, if I'm understanding this correctly, it does allow you that opportunity to think of other potential intentions that person may have. You know, they could have had a bad day. Their
Right.
spouse kicked them out of the house. You know, things are going on with their kids. so many things that could be going on. Would that be an application that you see as well in applying that empathy principle?
Yeah, I mean, rejection doesn't it's hard, especially I know from my early careers, right? I took rejection pretty personally, right? I took it
Yeah.
as almost like a personal affront, like, oh my gosh, they
Yeah.
don't like me or whatever. It's like that might not necessarily be true.
Yeah.
To your point, I could have just caught them at a really bad time. Maybe their kids are up all night and they're exhausted and they don't have the mental capacity to deal with anything else right now. And that's
Yeah.
okay. I shouldn't take it as a reflection upon me and what I'm bringing to the table. It's just not the right place and not the right time. But again, you won't see those signals, you won't hear those signals, you won't be able to even, to your point, reflect on those signals if you're not out there trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think the other kind of mindset piece, I like to use the acronym ABL, right? You should always be learning. In
Hmm.
our industry, the industry of sales in general, it's constantly evolving based on market conditions, based on your customers' current situations, based on your prospects. It's an ever changing tide. And if you're not constantly paying attention to that, you're going to end up pretty far off course, if I'm sticking with the tide metaphor.
Absolutely. And so you've you've been in corporate sales recruiting for, you said, 10 years. Is that
10 years of
correct?
sales, yeah. 2 years, I decided to leave for a few years and test the
Yeah.
waters in the SaaS space,
Yeah.
and then found myself back in the recruiting space after doing that for a couple of years.
And last year, about this time, is when you launched your business, The Honest Salesman. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What led you to take that step from being a W-2 employee, having some security there? I mean, we can talk about what the actual security is,
Sure.
but you had some security there to take that step into becoming a full-time founder.
I I've been kicking around the idea for years, to be honest, that I wanted to
Yeah.
go out and do my own thing. The allure was pretty strong, and it was one of those. I feel like we all have this, right? You get an idea in your head, and sometimes it seems crazy. You're like, this is ridiculous. No. But then the idea just keeps coming back and it keeps coming back. And it kept kind of like gnawing at me. And I was like, look, I got to give this thing a try, because what I don't want to do is look back 20 years from now and think, wow, I wish I had done that, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I forget the book, but it's a book basically someone interviewed a lot and a little bit heavy topic with people on their deathbed. And almost every person interviewed, one of their biggest regrets was not trying something. It wasn't because they went out and did something, it's because they didn't do something. And I told
Yeah.
myself, like, I had some personal things happen in my life around 6 months prior to that where it was that message really weighed with me in terms
Hmm.
of the regret of not doing something. And so I told myself, look, I'm not going to be that person. I need to give this a try. And if it fails, right? There's no shame in it. I'm going to give it a try. And guess what? If it doesn't work out, I'll go back to being a W-2 and I'll go back to selling. I was really good at it before. I have no doubt I could do it again, but I want to be my own boss.
Yeah.
And the name, I mean, just the honest salesperson itself, what I started out, I just thought, I'm gonna tell people the honest truth about sales. I was tired of getting on LinkedIn every day and seeing people talk about overnight success, 10 clients in 30 days, like
Yeah.
all these microwave mentality of instant gratification. I thought that's not true. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's the abnormality. From my own personal experience, I struggled for months when I started out, both recruiting, both in sales, same when I got into SaaS as well. Like those first 6 months to a year are hard, an absolute
Yeah.
grind, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I guess going back to maybe your O-line question too, from my own line days to now my days of running my own company, like my always thought process was like, I might not be able to beat you on this specific play, but I'll outlast you over the course of 4 quarters. Like
Hmm.
I will be able to win when it counts the most, aka the end of the game, simply because I'm willing to put in the effort for longer than you will. And if that's the case, I'll end up winning this game. And that's kind of what I've applied to my business as well, in a very grinder mentality.
Yeah. And I imagine being on the O line, that's that's wired into you to grind in the trenches,
Yeah, I
grind in the
mean,
trenches.
it is. Like if you ever watch an NFL game, the fun part is the 2 minute drill, right? The announcers all talk
Hmm.
about the 2 minute drill, they're hurrying around. offensive linemen, it's not talked about enough. Offensive linemen love the 4-minute drill. And for those that don't know what it is, it's when you have the lead and you've got the ball with about 4 minutes left. And guess what? The defense knows what you're going to do. We know what we're going to do. We're going to run the ball and we're going to run the clock out. Everyone in the stadium knows what it's going to do. But it is a true, like, who wants it more mentality, because everyone knows it's going to happen. And being able to close out a game with the ball in your hand because you're just going to pound the rock is like that's like the old lineman's 2-minute drill. That's what we live for. And we practice it every week. And like, I mean, just going back to my college days, one of my proudest moments was when we won conference in 2009. It was against a team called Wheaton College, and we ran a 4-minute drill.
Yeah.
And they knew it. And we ran the ball, I think, 13 straight plays, and
Yeah.
they couldn't stop it. And we were getting 4 or 5 yards a pop, but going back to just outlasting, that's what we did. And we ended up winning conference and going to playoffs, all because of something like a 4-minute drill.
Yeah, that's got to be so deflating for an
It's deflating for
opponent.
them. It's invigorating
Yeah.
for us. Like it is a true, like, it is a true battle of the wills. It is a
Yeah.
true who wants it more, and it
Yeah.
is a true mental fortitude type setup.
Yeah.
And if you're wired like me, you love it because it's the ultimate battle of wills.
Yeah.
And I mean, 2-minute drill is fun and all, but I'm an O-lineman. I don't like running up and down the field. Give me 4 yards in a cloud of dust because I'm just going to impose my will on the
Yeah.
person in front of me over and over again.
Love it. Now, let's unpack the honest salesman, your company, for a second here. Who do you serve with your company, and, you know, what problems do you solve? And essentially, what business are you in? Are you in the sales recruiting business? Unpack that for us.
Yeah. I want to go back to how you phrased it too for those listening in. If you're like a big word person like I am, right? You use the word, who do you serve? I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to look at anyone in sales, because ultimately
Hmm.
you are serving your clients. And so I want to make sure I address that. As far as like
Yeah.
who I serve, it is the founders, business owners within the recruitment space,
Mm.
specifically within the small size businesses. We're talking your mom and pop shops of maybe one a husband and wife, maybe one individual, one recruiter, up to company size of about 25 employees. And what I do and the way I serve them is helping them put together the processes and systems they need to
Yeah.
produce repeatable business. Because what I've learned and seen too over the past years, a lot of these agency owners, through no fault of their own, they've got a million other things going on, right? They're running a business, and sales is not always something they can spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day on. They need
Yeah.
to have those systems in place that they can then in turn pass off to a BDR, an SDR, an AE to replicate over and over again. And the other thing too is they may have grown their agency to a certain number based on just referrals. And I'm all for referrals, right? Please tap into your referral network, use your network as much
Mhm.
as you can. But the day when that well runs dry is the day when the owners say, okay, what do I do from here? And
Yeah.
that's where I come in.
And so when you say agencies, you're referring to staffing agencies. And what particular roles do you focus on staffing? Is it strictly sales, or is there a range of roles that, in terms of agencies that you serve?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I, the people I coach, right, through staffing slash recruiting, I think there's always the delineation between the two, but
Hmm.
it's ultimately the recruitment space. And I work with the sales slash recruiters. And I say the slash because there's some people who identify as recruiters first and
Hmm.
salespeople second. They're the ones doing what we would call the 360 model. They're responsible for finding the candidates, but they're also responsible for sourcing new clients. Then you've
Mm.
got some organizations like the ones I've been a part of where there's the 180 split, where maybe your primary function was just to recruit and your other primary function was just to sell. In those organizations, I'm working strictly with the salespeople because that's what I did. I did new client acquisition, and that's what I've done honestly for the last 10 years. Even when I went to SaaS, my job was a hunter. I was
Yeah.
out finding new business. And when I was in recruiting, the first thing I sold was in scientific, and it was a territory at zero. So I had no clients, no business. My job was to go out, hunt, and bring in new business, and then grow from there.
And when you're coaching your clients at the staffing agent or recruiting agencies, what are the common problems that you're helping them work through?
The main problem is how do I get new clients, I think. But within
Yeah.
there, you work backwards, right? Like,
Right.
yes, the signed deal is the outcome of every other step that occurred before that. And how I help them is putting together things sometimes as simplistic as your ICP, right? Starting
Hmm.
there. I think one of
Yep.
my favorite metaphors I've been using a lot lately is building a house.
Yeah.
I'm in the western suburbs. There's a town over from me called Naperville. It's a
Hmm.
really nice neighborhood with
Yep.
multi-million dollar mansions. The thing is, though, those multi-million mansions are built on some great foundations. They couldn't get that large and that gaudy, I guess would be a word,
Yeah.
without having a solid foundation. And when you're in sales, that is your ICP, that's your territory plan, and that's your account focus doc. Those are the
Let,
specific
let,
goals you're trying
let
to
me hit the
accomplish.
pause button real quick. So ICP is your ideal customer
Yes.
profile. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Okay. And so you started your business about a year ago
Mhm.
and you help your clients figure out how they're going to find clients. Now, the beauty of being able to talk to you now is you still have a memory of when you flipped the lights on for your business and needing to find your first client. How did you go about finding your first client? What was that process like?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing now, I definitely bought into the Justin Welsh type model. If you spend any time on LinkedIn, you more likely than not have seen his post. I and myself bought
Hmm.
some of his content as well. And I saw LinkedIn, and I still do, right, a year in, as a big channel to drive
Hmm.
new business because your content is a digital representation of yourself that sells 24/7. So when I
Yeah.
put my head down at the pillow, my content is still selling on my behalf. It's building brand awareness, it's building problem awareness, right? It's really bringing eyeballs to my page. And then I'm also including some traditional, right, offline stuff where I'm actually reaching out to people, I'm making cold calls. But I think those two together has led, and it did lead to my first client was honestly, it was an individual by the name of Chuck, and he reached out to me because he saw something on LinkedIn. He actually initiated with me. It was my first inbound lead, right? Like the dream every
Nice.
salesperson wants to have and
Yeah.
rarely ever has accomplished. I was fortunate enough that one of my first clients was because of that. He saw a
Yeah.
post, reached out to inquire a little bit more. We got on a call,
Yeah.
went through what I would consider my standard process of doing a discovery call, again, going back to what we talked about, like actually seeking to understand what his problems were because
Hmm.
I didn't know if I was the right fit. And I've gotten on calls with people where I am not the right fit. I had one last week where this woman was looking for more help from a branding and marketing perspective. And I told her, that's great. That's not me. I'm here to help you on the sales, the outbound new client acquisition. But I know some people who can help you with this. Let me direct you to those. And if and when the time comes, you feel like you need help on this side, think of me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way you want to go about with any kind of discovery meeting, to be honest.
Earlier, you talked about as you work with clients, and I'm sure with your own business, you talked about building systems. Of course, this is the systematic selling podcast. So, we believe wholeheartedly in the power and the value of systems. What are the key systems for you in driving your sales?
For like my own personal business,
Yeah.
for me, it is LinkedIn being the driving force for me. And a
So
lot
that
of it,
inbound prospecting through LinkedIn.
yes, I would delineate between inbound and outbound because I think a lot of people, if you're going the LinkedIn route,
Mhm.
tend to overlook some of the potential buying signals that occur from the data that LinkedIn presents to you. And by that, I mean, if someone's viewing my profile,
Yeah.
I look at that as akin to someone walking by my shop. If I was in, Miracle Mile here in Chicago, Times Square, New
Sure.
York, right, and I had a business and someone's walking by my shop and stops to look at it, something caught their eye, right? To me, that's a
Interesting.
buying signal to say,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you come on in? Come into the store. Like, why don't you check it out? See what potentially if there's something of interest, maybe I have something I can offer you. And by that, that's where I use some of my outbound processes where, for example, this morning, I spent an hour and a half sending nothing but LinkedIn messages to people that either connected with me, followed, viewed my profile to spark conversations. And from there, we see if they're the right fit. And then we would move them to actually having a meeting together. And
Yeah.
then I think where the more traditional sales is once you get to that point, right? Not everyone's ready to buy right now. Not everyone's the right fit, right? Using that individual as an example last week, she's going to go into some nurture campaigns for me, right? I'm going to stay in touch with her. I'm going to engage with their LinkedIn posts. I'm going to engage with their content as well. And then I'm going
Yeah.
to continue to stay in touch with her from an email perspective. And maybe I'll even give her a call or two because I do have that data captured because we had some discovery meetings as well.
Want to hit the pause button real quick because you brought up a very interesting point that I imagine is wasted opportunity for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And that is looking at the folks that view your profile, those that either accept connection requests or they connect with you. I would imagine the vast majority of us just, you know, ignore those signals. And in some cases, we may see those signals, but think, yeah, but I don't want to come across as pushy,
Mm.
or I don't want to come across the wrong way. I don't want to turn them off. What is an example of your approach when you see somebody that has viewed your profile and you're just reaching out in a friendly way?
Yeah.
What is an example of what you say in that situation?
I mean, I have templates, so I could tell you exactly word for word what I say because I'm doing
Yeah,
it all the time. But
awesome.
ultimately, what it boils down to is first and foremost, I thank them,
Yeah,
right? I say thank you because to me, regardless if you stop by my profile, you hit the follow button, you commented, you liked, whatever, there's different emojis in there. You took time out of your day to engage with me. So
yeah,
therefore, why shouldn't I thank you for giving me your most valuable asset? You gave me a piece of your time, right? A piece of your attention. So I always start every message say, thanks so much for supporting my post, for coming to my profile, whatever it is. And
yeah.
I almost always end it the same way. Hey, out of curiosity, is there anything I could do to be of help? More often than
Mm,
not, people are going to say, no, just checked out your profile. No, loved your content. But you do have people that respond and say, yeah, actually, the reason why I checked you out because of X, Y, and Z. I'm dealing with this, right? They present what it is that drove them to come check me out. And the conversation started from there. I mean, I had a woman 2 days ago who I did the same process with this, and her response back was, thank you so much. No one's ever once thanked me for engaging with their posts. She's like, that's never happened before. And I was like, wow, like not that I thought like this was some groundbreaking strategy, but I thought, wow, that like really speaks to me that this is a little bit different. This is a little bit unique, and what I'm doing is correct. Like it's bringing attention back to me, and it's also again thanking people for whatever they did. While it might seem insignificant to hit a like button, you took a conscious decision to do that. That wasn't an automatic thing. Therefore, I recognize that and I appreciate it.
yeah. I'm gonna hit the pause button again on that because I want to reinforce what you're saying.
Okay.
Guys, that this is an incredibly valuable piece of advice that Keely just gave because that's an that is an opportunity that vast majority of us overlook, and it's so simple. You did not sell anything to them. You
Nope.
did not say, hey, check out my course, check out my newsletter. Hey, if you need this, I can do that. You you did not expect anything in return, but you built a relationship. That's number one that I want to emphasize. Number two that I want to reinforce is you have taken an inbound prospecting process, meaning posting on LinkedIn. So you're posting on LinkedIn to build visibility with the hopes of having somebody, reach out to you. What you've done is you've extracted even more value by turning the hat around and going, okay, but now I've got an outbound
Hmm.
opportunity.
Yep.
And it's not a it's not a cold outreach in this instance. They've taken the time and you have given them value by thanking them for taking the time to engage on your post. and doing it in a way that you didn't try to extract value from them.
Yep.
That's, you said it's not a groundbreaking idea, but in a lot of ways it is. That is not a common thing that I see. So, guys, in the systematic selling framework, system number 2 is prospecting. And this is where you would slot this in of what Keely is saying here.
Yeah.
And you've got that division of, okay, I'm doing outbound versus inbound type of prospecting, but keep in mind that you want to be able to know when to shift from one to the other, and you can do it in a way that's in a low pressure way. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. So you talked about that system, your
Hmm.
prospecting system of building your business. I imagine once you see that people are interested in learning more, that's when you get to your discovery system. What does that typically look like in terms of what are the key things that you try to seek to understand? Do you have a kind of a core way that you run your meeting and then customize it slightly for the prospect, or how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. I want to understand where they're at today, where they want to be
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, and then
Mm-hmm.
what they feel like is the missing piece to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get on some calls with individuals and they think, going back to the example, right, they want to work on their branding and marketing. They feel like that's the missing piece. Or they feel like they need to just get better candidates, right, for staying in the recruitment space. They need to somehow increase that. And that's fine. Like if that's the area you want to focus on, awesome. I'm not the right fit for you. But if I'm hearing things like I want to grow my book of business, I want to bring in new clients, I don't know how to bring in new clients, right? That's where I feel like, okay, there's some synergy here. Let's explore this a little bit further and understand what it is within that sales process that could use some help. Because
Mm-hmm.
it could be something as simple as, well, I'm going on a ton of meetings and I'm just not closing deals. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well that to me is a conversion problem, right? We need to talk about how you're running your meetings. Other people are saying like, I don't even know where to begin, right? Like I don't know who I'm reaching out to. I feel like there's so many people I could be reaching out to. I just feel lost. Those
Yeah.
people, paralysis by analysis, that happens to all of us too. It's like, okay, now I know what stage you're at in your sales journey, and I
Yeah.
can offer ways that could potentially help you. So I guess that's kind of where it comes down to is I just want to understand where they're at, where they want to be, and if I can play a piece or play a part in getting them to where they want to go. Because that's for every client I work with, I know what their revenue goals are. I know what they're trying to accomplish by the end of the year. And what I tell them every time is my goals are your goals, right? If your goal is to get to X, my goal is to help you get there by doing Y. And if
Yeah.
we do get there at the end of the year, I played a small part in it, and we're all happy as a result of it.
So when your clients work with you, and so suppose there's a specific problem that they've come to you about, and you go, yeah, this is something I can help you with. How does that typically unfold for them? Are you doing this on a kind of a regular basis where there's a certain number of coaching sessions that you anticipate it would take to get them there, or is it as needed? How does that typically work when a client works with you?
I've had a few as needed clients who
Hmm.
pop in and out and say, okay, I'm really stuck here. Like, let's spend a couple hour
Hmm.
long sessions focusing on this one topic.
Hmm.
The vast majority, though, of my clients are the ones who are saying, look, I want to sign up for 90 days because that's what I usually start with. I've got a
Hmm.
couple that have gone on to in continuation, right? We get through the 90 days. The things are working so well. We want to continue the relationship. But how it starts is let's spend 90 days together once a week for an hour. And we're
Hmm.
going to spend time talking through your business development, where half of the session is going to be more tactical, aka
Hmm.
what's happened in the past week, what have you tried, what's the market feedback being from your outbound efforts, and then the other half is the more strategic. Okay, for the next week, how are we going to adapt? Going back to the always be learning mindset, like what did we learn? What are we going to apply this week? What can we do differently? And how are we going to accomplish the goals we want to accomplish by the end of the week or by the end of the quarter too, right? I think I hinted at this account focus doc. I'm always working with my clients of setting very specific goals within each account that they deem worthy of their time and then
Yeah.
holding them accountable to it as well, because it can be hard, especially if you're running your own business and trying to do sales. Some of these things that you set out at the beginning of the quarter saying, I want to accomplish X, falls down that totem pole pretty quickly, because out of sight, out of mind, as we all know. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's my job just to bring that back to the surface and say, hey, you said you wanted to accomplish this. Where are we at with it? We're not there. Okay, why not? Great. We still think it's a worthwhile goal. What are we going to do to at least take a step forward to accomplishing that goal?
Yeah, I can completely relate to that because my experience with working with founders as well is to help them sanity check their own goals.
Yeah, I like that
So,
phrase.
yeah, I was you were a college offensive lineman in football. I ran cross country and track in college, and then I got into marathons later. And the thing that finally came to terms with as I got older, and your body doesn't quite perform to the same level of performance as it did when you're 22, is I have certain goals, right? The question I had to come to terms with is, am I willing to pay the price for those goals, right?
Hmm.
And to be honest. And when I'm honest with myself, I go, no, I'm not willing to pay the price for this goal. So I'll scale it back. So I've got a founder that I work with, and typically he likes to, work 35 hours a week, right? Be able to do other activities, have that certain type of balance. All right. So then you also have certain sales goals on top of managing your sales team.
Hmm.
Now, does that sales goal align with what you're wanting to do personally? Do you need to adjust your goal? Do you need to adjust your input?
Yeah.
And I think what you hit on there is figuring out where that alignment is so that they can set themselves up for success. Because as a founder, you're wearing all the hats. You're not a full-time salesperson.
No, I mean, you're not, even though sometimes I wish I was again, but you're not,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I agree with like the alignment piece too, because I think going back to the example I used of my clients' goals or mine, we don't always have to have like the same goals. Like I could be working in an organization, they just want to grow a little bit, right? 10% year over year. I
Yeah.
got some other clients. We've talked about the 5-year, 10-year plan and what it could look like to get an acquisition. Those are two
Mm,
very different goals. And with that comes different, to your point, inputs that need to occur to get to that goal. And if
yeah.
we're not aligning those, going back to my tide thing, we're definitely off course from a ship perspective. And even
Yeah.
if you're slightly off course, you can be very, very far off target when it's a quite long journey.
Now, you've been in business, you're at your year anniversary, which is fantastic. I mean, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
That is no small feat. There's so much inertia. There's so many forces that, you know, just work against you, not just external forces, just the stuff between your ears, you know, can really you're really having to fight off. What have been some of the challenges that you've wrestled with in your own business, and how have you worked?
I mean, challenges. I mean, one of the main challenges is always like you never feel like you have enough clients. Let's
Yeah.
just start there. Like it never feels like enough, especially when you're running your own shop and there is no guarantee that in 2 weeks a paycheck's coming. That is certainly the allure of safety. And I know we said we might get into like what it's like to be W-2 in safety or not. If that's true or
Yeah.
not, so be it. But the point is, more likely than not, you're expecting to be paid in 2 weeks. That's not always the case when you're running your own business. That's certainly been a challenge. The biggest one, though, has definitely been the one between the years, because there are days, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't like a week or two in a row where I'm like, yep, I'm not going to make it. Like I will be applying for jobs here by the end of this month because I haven't signed the clients that I wanted to this month. Things went wrong, right? Maybe someone
Hmm.
dropped out. I don't, so many things can go wrong. And the doubt then creeps back into the mind because you have no one else to like really bounce ideas. It's me, myself, and I, right? My dog sometimes in my office too, but he's a great listener, but he's not very good at bouncing ideas back and forth with me. And so that can fester and can get kind of out of control pretty quickly. I'm very fortunate to have, she'll listen to this, so she'll know that I'll say this, but like my wife has been one of, if not the biggest supporter, right? Where there's times where I've told like, we're not doing it. I'm applying for a job. It's over. Like I
Yeah.
tried, we failed. It's okay. I can live with this. I'm
Uh-huh.
going back. And she's like, no, like we're close, right? And I've even at times sat down with her and said, look, like, am I crazy to think that I'm like right at the tipping point? Like this is what's happened. Am I just being delusional? Because I certainly live with my head in the clouds sometimes. I'm an optimistic individual by nature. And so sometimes I have to have that reality check of like, look, am I being foolish thinking that the tides are about to turn, that things are about to go my way? And we've had that conversation a few times over the course of the past year. And thankfully, every time she's like, no, like what you're telling me, what I'm seeing, it seems like you are not being unrealistic and we can continue doing this journey together. And that's really, I mean, it's been very helpful to say the least, because I don't think I would have made it to the year mark had we not had
Yeah.
those conversations. I definitely would have packed it up probably more than once at this point.
Want to reinforce what you're saying there. It is extremely important to have the ones closest to you to be your support. I
Yep.
I wouldn't be where I am without my wife having, you know, saying, "Yeah, I'll support you in this." And, 11 years in, you still have those moments where you go, "Do I have what it takes to
Yeah.
get this thing to the next level?" And to have a spouse there that goes, "Yeah, I believe in you." Because it's one of those things that as you grow the business and you're making money, you still deal with that nagging doubt of, oh, is this the time I fail?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
because your expenses go up. It just everything tends to expand with the business, and so do some of you know, the the anxieties and potential pitfalls. And so the reality of knowing that and not being alone and having people to bounce that off of. I can't reinforce that enough to you founders out there that, you know, find a community, lean on your spouse, those that genuinely trust you and trust in your abilities to find that community that can encourage you because that's just the reality. You know, those of us that are solopreneurs, those of us that, we have a team, but they're contractors, those of us that have employees. It's not like you can go to your employees and go, you know what, guys, I don't know if we're going to make it.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You cannot, yeah, you have to show a pretty strong face if you have people that are literally relying on you for a paycheck.
Yes. And that also, what I have found in those times of desperation, you have to have a certain level of strength when you're out in the field and selling because you cannot sell out of that spirit of desperation.
Mm.
You got to maintain that focus that you sell out of the spirit of service. And that is one of the hardest things that you can do is I imagine that you've wrestled with, especially in this first year of being patient,
Yeah.
sitting back, but knowing that that's what's best for your business in the long run. Would that
Yeah.
be accurate with your experience?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have like real world examples of it where I somehow got connected with someone who is he's an SAP consultant in Italy. We got
Hmm.
a couple calls. He described kind of what he wanted. I got the call thinking like, yeah, I don't think I could do this, but like I'm kind of desperate to sign some clients here. Like, am I willing to try to fake it till I make it
Uh-huh.
to work with them? And luckily my better angel won out where we got on the call the next. And I told Milos, I'm like, look, I'll be honest, man, I'm not your guy. Like, and it hurts to say that I'm passing up a nice sized check because you're willing to write it. But I just know if we spend the next 13 weeks together, this would be a waste of 13 hours of your life because I'm not the right fit for you. He was thankful. I mean, we touch base, like this was 4 or 5 months ago, this first started. Like we're touching base every 6 months now because he said, look, I could use some help in certain areas. I might come back to you because I appreciate the honesty. And so thank you for that. And it was a really hard thing to say. Yeah, I'm gonna say no, but I knew it
Yeah.
was the right thing to say.
You really hit on a theme there. First off, fantastic job. That takes courage, and but you kept your eye on building trust. And the goal, when I think of the systematic selling framework, the goal of that is building impeccable trust. And what that means is that the goal of sales isn't getting that deal, getting the transaction done. The goal of it is to build such impeccable trust that the people that you're dealing with, whether they're prospects or clients, they will beg to buy whatever you're selling them. And what you've done there is you've established a relationship despite, hey, I could have used this money, but you turned it down because you were looking at what was best for that client. That is a trust building bond moment that now they're trying to think of ways, how can I hire this person? And
It
you exemplified it there.
yeah, I think this we probably talked about it earlier in this, but like the sale is just the byproduct, right? It's of doing
Yeah.
all the right things. Sometimes even if it's not to your benefit, but doing the
Yeah.
right things for the client. And if you do, good things tend to come your way. It might not be in this moment,
Yeah.
but inevitably, who knows? Who's to say that Milos doesn't run into a recruiting firm in Italy that needs help with sales? Who's the first person he's going to think of? He's going to think of me now, right? And
Yeah.
same with for me now, SAP side of stuff. If anyone's going through SAP migrations, Milos is my guy. So it's like it's just a never-ending cycle of like good karma being sent around.
As we close out, is there anything that we haven't talked about today, whether it's around building sales systems or advice that you have for other founders that you think would be important for our audience to know about?
I mean, advice for founders. I think going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago with how you're describing it reminded me a lot of like imposter syndrome, right? Because even when
Mm.
things start going well, you think, am I actually good at what I do or am I just
Yeah.
getting lucky? And I would say to that, that's normal, right? I think that's just part of human nature. I know I've learned it myself in sales. I mean, some of my, I mean, not to get like too heavy, but some of my darkest days in sales were when I was at the top of the world in terms of quota because I was flying high, President's Clubs, everything was great on the outside, but internally I had wrestled with some demons that were consuming me from an imposter syndrome perspective because sometimes a few bumps in the road make you question if you're even good at what you do, and that can get out of control pretty quickly. But having a community, having people to rely on, that's how you can pull, they can help pull you out of those darker times, so to speak.
In addition to having those people around you that can help pull you out, what are some things that you do internally in your head that help you fight off the some of those demons of imposter syndrome or that
Yeah,
fear of failure?
I mean, one, I remind myself of why I do what I do, right? I
Mm.
love what I do. I love that I get an opportunity to coach people because I have a passion for it.
Yeah.
I remind myself I'm a better person because of what I'm doing for my wife, for my kids as a result of that. I try to reflect on some of the things that have gone well in the past to say, hey, look, like you've gotten this far, you've done some things right, so you can't be a complete failure, right? Because you wouldn't be here today if you did. And
Yeah.
that's helped me as well. And then I think, putting a bow on the offensive lineman thing, I I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the sharpest tack in the drawer, but I certainly can outlast people. And I remind
Mhm.
myself of that over and over again. I mean, one of my favorite stats to tell clients around prospect and prospecting is most prospects, what is now, they won't meet with you until 8 or 9 touches. Most sales rep give up by the third or fourth touch. And so I tell myself, look, I don't I don't need to like come up with the greatest
Yeah.
opener, the greatest email. Like sometimes I just need to put in the effort. And if I do that, good things will come my way. And I think that's really helped me a lot where I have felt the doubts. I just remind myself, hey, I have a process, I have a system in place, I know it works, and I
Yeah.
know that my competition won't have the fortitude to see this through to the end because they're afraid of the rejection, they're afraid of the no's, and I'm saying like, well, I might be afraid of that because I am. I'm
Yeah.
human. I accept that. And it took me a long time to learn to accept those feelings. I say, okay,
Yeah.
I accept the fact that I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of failing. Like I'm afraid of a lot of things, but I'm a human being and that's normal and that's okay. Once I accept that, it's a lot easier to move forward because those darker times I tried to fight it. I told myself,
Yeah.
"Oh no, I'm not afraid of this. I'm not." It's like it spirals out of control because you deny the fact that you're even a human being, and that's just not a good way to go about living life.
Love it. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn, if I haven't hit that enough, right? I am on LinkedIn every day. You're going to see posts from me every day at 8:30 Central Time. I
Yep.
engage with a lot of people on there. I have a newsletter as well if anyone's interested in signing up for that for free. Just longer form content. If you like what you see on LinkedIn, I just expand upon those ideas within the newsletter as well.
Yeah, guys, if you haven't subscribed to Keely's newsletter, check it out. It's The Honest Salesperson. And what is it? The URL,
Yeah, dot
thehonestsalesperson.substack.com.
Substack. Yeah, honestsalesperson.substack.com. Yep.
Check them out on Substack. Keely, great stuff today. I really appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. This was a ton of fun. I appreciate it as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked what you heard, please hit like and subscribe and share this episode with anyone you think will find value in it. In the meantime, I'll leave you with this. Always remember, when you fix your systems, you'll fix your sales. Until next time.